today I'm going to teach you how to make single ply yarn out of plastic bags. This is really great stuff to use if you are going to create something like a beach bag or even potentially an outdoor rug, but also if you combine it with yarn, you can make a really cool effect, which I'll show you at the end. So the supplies you're going to need would be plastic bags and a pair of scissors, and that is literally it. Now what I like to start doing with our plastic bags is I like to kind of refold them the way that they come before they get stuffed with groceries. So the way that you do that is you make sure it's right side out, and then you're going to stick your finger in the corner here and tug on the top. And when you do that, it sort of refolds the creases, and this is just to keep things neat and tidy. So then you go ahead and smooth this out, and look, it tells us reuse and recycle, which is what we're doing to make yarn. Now the first step is going to be to take your scissors and cut along the bottom seam here so that we have a giant tube is what we're sort of creating. So cut that off and you can set that aside. And then you're going to cut off the top and the handles. It's important to cut below where these little fringy pieces are so that your yarn doesn't break. And then you're going to just cut here and then set that aside. So essentially what this does is it creates a large open tube that you can put your hands in. And so I would go ahead and stretch it out, remove those folds that you started with, and you're going to just essentially lay it flat so that the tube is folded in half. Now from here, we're going to take our bottom seam and we're going to fold it about 1 inch or so from the top here. Then we're going to take our bottom seam and fold it to the top of the seam that you just created, still leaving that inch of the other piece there. Take it, fold it up to the top again, and one more time. This is just to make it a little bit more manageable. And I like to really smooth this out to make my cuts a little more even. Now you're going to pick up your whole piece and we're going to make a cut about 1 inch or so from the edge, and we're not going to cut all the way up to the top. We're going to leave about 1/2 inch of space at the top here. And you're going to create about 1 inch or so thick strips by cutting it just like this. And you'll have them dangling off, but all connected at the top. And so we'll continue to snip all the way down here. Doesn't have to be perfect. The yarn sort of rolls into itself. So if your strips are a little less than even, that is totally okay. You just want to make sure they're not too thin, because if you make them too thin, unfortunately, it will cause your yarn to rip more easily because it is pretty fragile once you get going. Okay, so we've made all of our cuts here. Now what we're going to be doing is I'm not going to unfold these yet. Some people will unfold them. I actually find it to be more manageable to not unfold them yet. But what we're going to do is we're going to lift up our piece here, and we're just going to gently open it so the very, very top fold is going to be in our hands here. And I'm gonna just get you started with the first couple. So here's the edge of our piece that we were just working on, and then you'll see the cuts here, 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 and they go all the way down into these vertical cuts. So the first thing we're going to do is from the outside edge to this first top cut, we are going to cut a diagonal. And this is going to be the start of our yarn. We'll let that drop. Now from our first bottom slit to the very top next one into a diagonal, yet again, we're going to cut a diagonal and cut that apart. And let's do it one more time, and then I'll sort of show you what happens here. Now you can do the same thing with things like old t-shirts. You can do the same exact technique, and this will make t-shirt yarn or anything you've got fabric-wise. You can do that as long as it starts in that tube shape. So again, from the bottom to the top in a diagonal, we're going to make a cut. So then you're going to do that all the way down, but I'll show you what happens here. So this was that first diagonal that we cut. This actually creates one long continuous yarn. It's like a magic trick. And you can see it's all connected and it unfolds itself. That's why I don't unfold those little strips at first, because it's kind of satisfying to do it. And so you're going to do this all the way down, and then when you're done, you have a long continuous piece of plastic yarn, and you can, which people call Plarn, and then you can continue to roll it into a ball and use it for your projects. And so I just kind of let it pile up here until I get to the end, and I just do a couple at a time. You can go the whole way if you'd like, but I usually do 2 or 3 at a time, unroll it a bit, 2 or 3 at a time, unroll it a bit. That's just my own process, but whatever works for you is totally fine. Whatever you feel like is the easiest way to not get super tangled. And I try to make sure I don't accidentally cut the wrong ones like I almost just did. So we continue to just cut on a diagonal all the way down. All right, when you get to the last piece, we sort of do the reverse of what we did. We have our last bottom one and we're gonna cut diagonal to the very far outside, and this will create the end of our yarn here. And then I just like to roll it up and unfurl the strips as I go. And when you're done rolling it, it turns into a little ball, and then you can use that for your projects. Now here it is in real application with yarn as a combination. So I like to add some yarn for creating a little more drape to it. If you just use plastic yarn, it's really, really sturdy, but it's really stiff. So it makes a good thing like a beach bag or something like that. But if you combine it with other yarn, you still have a lot of that structure, but a little more drape. So this would be great for something like an entryway rug, even a beach bag or something along those lines. But you can see the brown is the plastic yarn that we made. And then the colored yarn, in this case, is bamboo yarn. I'm using True Boo from Lion Brand. And I use the double ply yarn with that. So I'm actually using double-stranded yarn, single-stranded plastic yarn, and that creates this effect.